Hello and welcome to MSCI 245. I'm Mark Smucker, your instructor for the course. So today we're going to get going with introduction to the course. I'm going to talk about, especially because it's an online course, we have to talk about our mechanisms for communication. I'm going to talk about ethical behavior in the course, basically talk a bit about cheating, and then get into material where we're going to start to learn a new programming language. All right, so let's get going here. So, as I said, I'm Mark Smucker, but I think it's important to always let you know how you should address me. My pronouns are he and him. As far as using my name, I would prefer if you were to call me Dr. Smucker. This is basically partly because this is the way I was when I was in school. Basically, my professors who had PhD degrees, we called them doctor. And so I just basically see that as a continuation of what I was used to. But I understand that not everyone likes that. It seems a little weird at times, like, oh, he wants to be called doctor, but he's not a medical doctor. That's fine by me. You don't want to call me doctor, don't call me doctor. In that case, the next best would be Professor Smucker. All right, I'm completely fine with that as well. You may, oh, Professor Smucker, that might suit you better. You might feel more comfortable with that, and that's great by me. Some of you, still might not get that, so fine. Go ahead, please. Call me Mr. Smucker. That's not a problem. I prefer the other ones, but that's fine. Now, some students, they end up basically saying, oh, they use a shorthand. They just use my last name. Okay, use my surname. So they might just call me Smucker. And I think sometimes it's done a bit more by accident, as in behind the scenes with their friends, they say Smucker this, Smucker that. And then to my face, they say it, and they don't remember that they're talking to me. But that's completely fine. I grew up for about a year and a half in Wales. And we actually there, I remember a period, I don't know, or maybe it was normal, but we often used each other's surnames. So I'm completely fine with that. No problem at all. And then if none of those work for you, please go ahead and call me by my first name. I will answer to my first name. All right. And by the way, if none of those work for you and you forget, I guess you can say, hey, you, or something like that. Whatever, it's okay. Now, this is just a preference ordering, all right? So I prefer what's at the top, but you need to just simply find where you're comfortable in this, balanced against what my preferences are. And from that, we can get going. All right. So, introduction. What is this course about? Good question, actually. I think to talk about that, we should talk a little bit about the progression of the courses in management engineering. You're the second cohort to sort of have this new progression through the management engineering program. Many years ago, I was the associate chair for undergrad in the department, and during that time period, we did several revisions to the curriculum. And one of the revisions that we did was redoing the sequence of courses a bit for the information systems core courses. This was to remove some duplication, overall improve the curriculum. And you're the second cohort to actually have that. I taught 245 last spring. This is the second time I'm teaching it. I sure hope it went fine. I think each time I teach it, it'll get better. So yeah, anyway, what is the course about? So let's put some context to this. So when you're in 1B, you take MSCI 121, and this is your Introduction to Programming course, and you basically learn how to write simple programs. It doesn't feel that way at all when you're doing it. It can be very challenging. But yes, we're going to teach you the idea behind computer programming. You're going to learn how to design a program to solve problems. And that's the core of that course. And the language that we learn in management engineering is Java, which is a high-level object-oriented programming language that uses a compiler, statically typed, all sorts of things like that. Words that you don't necessarily need to know. Then in 240, 240 is one of my favorite courses. I've taught 121. I taught it for about 5-6 years. 240 the same. 240 was the course that I taught when I first started here at Waterloo. So 240, algorithms and data structures. But what is it really the point of that course? The point of that course is really to start to think about scaling to larger problems. So how do you use your algorithms and data structures to be able to handle more data? A huge focus of management engineering is dealing with data. And this is the age and the era of big data. Maybe by the time you're in the middle of your career, it'll be the age of the super duper gigantic data. I don't know. But because it's just growing and growing, everything is awash with data. You have to be able to understand the basics of algorithm computational complexity to really start to be able to handle all of that data. And that's really the core focus of that course. Now you're in 2B. And so it's time for MSCI 245, which is this course. And in this course, it's called databases and software design, but the reality of it is that this is a course where we're going to teach you how to build modern web apps. Okay, this is where you learn about a 3-tier architecture. And these 3-tier architectures, they use, we're going to use a relational database. That's the databases of the course title. Use a relational database for storage. Okay, so what does this kind of look like? Well, what are these 3 tiers? On a real quick high level, the first tier is there's a client. And this is what the user sees and interacts with. And in a web app, this sits at the web browser. So your Chrome, your Safari, and so forth and so on. And when a user wants to start doing stuff, they first they send an HTTP, a hypertext transfer protocol request. This is when you type in a URL like www.uwaterloo.ca and you hit enter into the browser. You're sending what's called a GET request to a web server. Okay. And that goes over the internet and reaches the actual web server. And in this web server is where the application's logic lies. For us in this course, we're going to use Ruby on Rails as our application server. So it goes into there, it processes that request, and in processing that request, often it needs to talk to the database. And so it uses SQL or SQL or structured query language, whatever you want to call it, and it connects to our database. Okay, so this is our database over here symbolically. It processes that request. it churns through and it sends back some rows of data. These are rows from tables. We're going to learn all of this in this course. The application server says, oh, good, it processes that data, and then it formulates a response back. It sends back HTML, so hypertext markup language, and then the browser goes, oh, it gets that file or that, the HTML, and it displays the page for the user. And this is a back and forth process. So every time the user does something, makes a request, submits some data or something, in comes the request. This server processes it, often has to talk to the database using SQL, and back comes some data. It processes, changes that, and puts it into a form that says how to display it to the user in the browser. Tier 1, 2, 3. Three-tier architecture. That's basically the course. We're going to spend all the course on building out and learning how to build these systems. All right, so to give some context where you're headed with this course, let's talk about the next courses in the sequence or management sciences. So in the winter term, when you come back in 3A, you're going to take MSCI 342. This is our software engineering course. And what does that really mean? What that means is to work as a team. Okay, so how can we, instead of working as one person writing a program, how can we as a team work together to create a large system? So you're going to work as a team and you're going to employ software engineering practices, because working as a team requires process, coordination. It requires an exactness. We can't just do stuff. And we really, in particular, want to know that what we've built is correct and works well and meets whatever our client wants us to actually do. And so that's what that course is. I teach that in the winter as well. Okay, so the big thing to know going 245 to 342 is we use the same software, the same technology. So in 245, when we're learning about these three-tier web applications and everything, you go to 342 and you still have to know that. You spend all term long developing a big web application for a client, okay? So it's really hard to do 342 if you haven't learned the material in 245. This is basically a two-course sequence. We start off, you could call actually 245 Software Engineering 1 and 342 Software Engineering 2. A little bit like you have Probability and Statistics 1 and Probability and Statistics 2. Except that here, absolutely, positively, you need to know everything in 245 to really have an enjoyable, successful time in 342, because you have to actually build and build these systems. So, can I sell you on 245? I don't know, but that's probably the really important thing to know. I'll later go over some of the feedback I got from some of the students who just finished 342 and had taken 245, but a lot of their feedback echoed this important point, which is I kind of really wish I'd spent a little more time and effort to truly try to learn the material in 245, because I had to go and relearn it all in 342. It would have saved me a lot of time, a lot of effort, and so forth and so on if I had just really tried to learn what's in 245 rather than just get through the course. Okay? So where do you go after 342? You go to 343, which is our human-computer interaction course. And this is all about how do we design systems that work well for people. okay? In 342 and certainly in 245, we spend almost no time really talking about how to interact with people, what's a good design for a human, how can we actually assess whether things are working well with people or not. We're focused on how to just build stuff in 245 and 342. What are, so it's like, how do we put all the parts together and get them to work? 343 is now, let's really talk more about how do we design the overall system that it works well and effective. And then in 4A, so these are your core courses in information systems. Of course, there's other courses, electives that you can take, but you get to 436 in 4A, and you take, this course is a combination of operations, research, and information systems to produce decision support systems. So how do we build these systems that are going to help management, going to help a business actually make decisions? So how do we combine all this operations research, all the optimization, supply chain, scheduling, all those sorts of things that we have there, along with all of this stuff that you've been learning in the previous courses for information systems to how to build an information systems? How do we put those together now so that we're able to have a complete system that really delivers the capability to help people make better decisions in the organizations and the businesses, how to leverage all of that data that we're collecting. So this is sort of a culmination of the two main technical streams in management engineering, shows up in this course. As well, by the way, in fourth year, you're working on your capstone project. Now, it's entirely possible that for your capstone project that you might only focus on operations research. You might only focus on information systems. So this is one of the reasons we have this course here, though, so that you can actually see those two aspects combined together into one course. Anyway, so that's where 245 fits into the sequence of courses. So you're basically at close to the halfway point. Once you finish 245, you'll be at the halfway point for the information systems courses. All right, let's move on to communication, our next topic. So how are we going to communicate and talk to each other in 245? Well, we're going to have these lectures. I'm going to be doing them from my undisclosed location. No, I'm here in Waterloo. This is actually being filmed in a very small bedroom. This is a whiteboard. Anyways, that I actually grabbed from the university. I'll take it back to the university when this pandemic is over and they let us work on campus again. All right. All the lectures are going to be in this way, for the most part, where I'm in front of a whiteboard. I will do some things where I record using the computer to actually show you stuff on the computer. I'll post those as well, but most of the lectures will be here on a whiteboard, which, one thing to note, you're probably not used to this as much. You're probably used to instructors who provide you with these very detailed lecture slides. I don't have any detailed lecture slides to provide you. These are my notes. They're enough to allow me to give a lecture, but they're not in a form, even if I scanned them, you would go, what is this junk that he's got here? I can't read his handwriting. It's disorganized. He's got arrows drawn all over. Of course, this is for me to be able to deliver a lecture. They're not notes for you. So you're going to need to work on your ability in this course and in 342 to actually take notes from the lecture. I will, just like I am doing right now, say things and not put it on the board. So I didn't bother to write on the board. You have to take good lecture notes. And again, that's one of these differences between a course that's got someone reading you PowerPoint slides, okay, and the way that I deliver lectures. That's just important to know. All right, let's get going. Let's really talk about what I wanted to say in communication in 245. These are the key points. All right, we're going to make good use of campus wire. My understanding is you used it in MSCI 240 with Mark Hancock. So one thing I want to first note is we're going to have lectures like this. Again, they're going to be recorded. Maybe at some point I'll figure out how to live stream, and that would be really cool. But at the moment, we're going to have recorded lectures. And so you're going to watch these things, and there are absolutely going to come times when you are like, what the heck does he mean by that? Or, I don't get that. Now, sure, the online world lets you rewind and watch again. That's like when I find rewinding and watching again when you realize that your ability to focus and concentrate has disappeared. I mean, I've tried to watch video lectures. Oh, absolutely. Got a new email. And next thing I know, or I go thinking about something else and I realize, wow, I actually haven't paid attention to what that person's been saying for who knows how long. Okay, I got to rewind and watch it again. That's what I definitely find happens. Maybe sometimes you can rewind to help you better understand it. Maybe hearing it again helps. Maybe you can work through the example I give or something. Possibly. But if you were in a live classroom, what I would want you to do is I'd want you to raise your hand, and I'd stop the lecture right then and there, and I'd call on you, and you'd ask your question, and I'd try to answer it. With these recorded lectures, obviously we can't do that. Even if I go to a model of live streaming, I don't have any way in my technology set up to have an interactive lecture here back and forth with you and see people raising hands. I'd love to be able to have that, but we're not there technology-wise yet in the setups that I have. So we're still, no matter what, going to be faced with a situation where there's lecture material and you're not going to get it. And if you had been there in person, you would have wanted to ask a question. And so this is what I want you to do with Campus Wire. Okay? Ask your lecture questions. Okay? So you're going to I want you to create a post in Campus Wire. Ask it. And it would be nice if, so it's like you're watching the lecture and you're like, I don't get that. You could pause it, hit the share button, okay? When you hit the share button, if you say include a time, everything's going to be posted to YouTube. Anyway, you click the share button in YouTube, you can click the time thing, and you can get the number of seconds into the video, and you could actually grab that link. And you could then post that link and say, and you could fix the time or whatever, and you can be like, when you're here in the lecture, give the link. I don't get what you mean by primary key or something like that. Like, could you give me another example? Because that's what you would do in a lecture. I'd want you to do that. I will then spend the time to produce an answer on Campus Wire. I might just stand here in front of the whiteboard, tape it, upload it, and link it in. I'm going to give you a video answer. I might just type the answer, whatever it is. But and then if you don't get that, I want you to respond and say, tell me more. Try again. I don't get it. Why? Because this is the way lectures are supposed to be. It's supposed to be a back and forth between me and you. And I just got to tell you, I'm not going to say there are no stupid questions. Okay, obviously we all know that there are some questions that, no, there aren't any really stupid questions. I will answer everything that you ask. Now, I just want to give you a sense of who I am. When I started off, as a student, I was a physics major. I eventually reached a point where I realized physics was not quite the field for me. And I was taking this modern physics course. This is with all sorts of quantum stuff in it. And the professor, Dr. Lewis, would lecture, and it would probably be a good 40 minutes into it or so. And eventually I would realize, like, I am completely lost. I do not know what he is talking about. What in the, like, and I would, and I'll admit, I knew Dr. Lewis because I worked in his research lab. So I was an undergraduate research assistant with him. So I knew him well. So I was pretty comfortable asking questions to him, unlike perhaps maybe the other students. So I would raise my hand, and honestly, I would often say, I don't really get this. Could you explain it again? And Dr. Lewis would look at me and he'd be like, which part? And I'd be, well, kind of like the whole thing. And, he'd roll his eyes or whatever, he'd take a deep breath. He was a very kind man, very kind. And see, so he at least tried to give like a summary. And that was nice. And it helped me a little bit. But actually, what I always found was most interesting about that, we had 40 plus minutes of lecture with not a question. But once I asked one question and showed everyone that it was possible, and the teacher, wasn't gonna bite my neck off or bite my head off. Yeah, don't bite a neck off, you bite the head off. Anyway, once they saw that, for the rest of the class, people were raising their hands, asking questions, and it became so nice, so wonderful. I love that interaction, that back and forth. I want your questions. So I want you to go to Campus Wire. You don't have to provide a link to the YouTube video, but ask your question. One thing that I have done, and by the way, when you ask your question, and whether it's about a homework, which is often what you find with the question and answering systems, that's great. We want homework questions too. Lecture questions, awesome, wonderful. But the one thing that's nice about Campus Wire is that absolutely we can have student answers or student students' responses, student answers, responses. I would really love to see these. Okay? Help each other out. And in mind with that, by the way, I do, this is going to be a little controversial, but I actually think it's important, is I've set up Campus Wire, so it's not anonymous actually. Okay. Now, I know it feels so much easier to ask a question anonymously, but you know what? I want us, the reason for this, I just think this is so critical in our online world right now, is to help develop our community, our sense of community in this class. I want you to know that there haven't been, last time I taught 245, there were over 1,000 questions asked in Campus Wire in the term. And I'll tell you, it looked like Anonymous asked 1,000 questions. It wasn't. Of course, I knew who was asking the questions, but to the classmates, it was anonymous, 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 anonymous. And same thing. Students would answer each other's questions, and they'd be anonymous. So it's just like anonymous, anonymous, anonymous. We don't need that. You guys are a cohort. You need to learn who each other are. And when you're in a classroom, I know you don't want to raise your hand either because other people might judge you, but this is the same way. Like, we're not going to be judging you. I'm not going to be judging you. I'm going to answer your questions, and it's really important, okay? And I want us to have a sense of who we are. Communication between individuals to form a community. I don't want it to be a one-way street between anonymous asking me questions and the professor and the TA giving answers. I would like to have more discussion, more back and forth. CampusWire is a Q&A tool, but there are comments. We can have follow-ups. We can do all sorts of things. I think it's going to be a good enough tool for that. That's why it's not anonymous. It's not anonymous. And by the way, CampusWire has a reputation system. So this is just like in Reddit. So, it's not karma points, but they got reputation points. So as you ask questions, you earn points. As you answer questions, you earn points. These are not tied to credit at all in the course, just like in Reddit. You don't get any, it's not like you get an A in the course for asking questions on Reddit. It's just for your own sake, its own sense. It's nice to see, ooh, I'm earning points. It's just there to be there. Okay, so it's not anonymous. I want your questions. I've got the reputation system turned on. What else should I tell you about CampusWire? Well, I want you to know, though, do not DM me questions. I don't need these. This doesn't work well for me. So now different professors are different, and I might very well engage with you with back and forth direct messaging, okay? But those are going to be special circumstances when we're trying to debug something or get something figured out. Don't send me a DM with a question. So what should you do? I want you to post your questions, okay? And if, you have something with homework that you basically would show an answer. So you're working on a homework and you need some help with something. You want to share something that you're like, oh my goodness, other students could see this and that might give them the answer. If you're doing this, post to the instructor and TA only, okay? So make it visible only to us. If it's a general question, post it to the whole class. And by the way, if it is a general question and you post it to only instructor and TA, we're going to turn it in, we're going to open it up and let the whole class see it, all right? So don't do it to us only to stay anonymous. Only do it to us in the situation where you're like, ooh, I'm worried that maybe if I ask this, I might be giving away answers and important things to other students. All right. So don't do that. So do the posting. Great. Other thing to know in CampusWire, I am going to use it for announcements. So I'm not going to be putting in announcements in Learn. I'm going to put them in CampusWire and I'm going to tag them as an announcement. So you should be able to do a filter on announcements to find all the announcements. Now that said, everything that goes on in CampusWire, you need to pay attention to and read. This is an extension of the course, okay? So I'm going to put this here. You should read every post. So when your classmates ask a question, as I've so encouraged them to do, and I answer it, you need to understand the question and the answer. This is part of the course. I may very well give a detailed answer and then not repeat that material in lecture the next day. I might just leave it out of lecture material because I expect that our lecture and our campus wire is part of the same whole. Campus wire is not something to only turn to when you have a question and you want an answer. Campus wire is like us sitting in the classroom and someone asks a question and you need to pay attention to it because my answer to it is actually potentially going to contain material you need to know to do well in the course. Okay, keep that in mind. Other form of communication, email. All right, so I want you to email for personal stuff. So a lot of times this is when you've gotten sick and you need an extension. Okay, I'll ask for evidence of being sick, all that good stuff. Certainly, I mean, this is stuff that the TA initially doesn't need to see. I'll eventually need to share with them to have you be excused or to give you an extension, whatever it is. This sort of stuff, email me, okay? Don't DM me in Campus Wire. You're not going to get an answer. I'm not going to answer DMs in Campus Wire. Send me an email. Great. Then what will we use Learn for? Well, Learn is where we're going to post materials for you that you need. This is our way to distribute these PDFs and other things. We'll organize the content of the course. Their announcements, though, are on Campus Wire, and likewise, we'll have your grades in Learn. Okay, that's how we're going to use Learn. All right. So to give you a quick summary of all of that. Summary of communication. So we've got key things that happen in a course. We have announcements. We have questions, or when you need some basic help on anything, homework, whatever it is. When you have personal issues or excuses or things like that. All right, those are the three sort of main things that happen in a course. That, this is one way to me, you need to know it. This is back and forth. This is one way from you to me. Our primary tools, again, are Campus Wire, email. We have lots of others that we're going to use as well, but not for communication purposes. All right, Campus Wire is going to be where announcements are made. They're going to be tagged as announcements. Questions help. Put it as a post, not a DM, okay? When it's, again, related to something you think might reveal answers to fellow students, and you're not supposed to be collaborating, you're going to send this only to the TAs and instructors. When you have personal issues and excuses, that's email. So let me actually just put that here. That's email. Oh yeah, and I forgot. Then also we have notion of lectures and materials and things like that. These all show up in Learn, okay? So Campus Wire for these first two, email for the third one. Learn is for the fourth one. Also, all the lectures end up on YouTube for convenient streaming. Great. We're going to, in the course soon today, I'll send out some information for getting started in the course. And so this will have a lot about accounts for you to set up. I'm also going to ask you some questions about yourself. I'm going to be forming, at least I'm pretty certain I'm going to be forming the notion of some teams, okay? We're not going, the details will be forthcoming. When it comes to tutorial and lab, we'll announce what's going to happen for these, okay? So at the moment, always keep those periods available. whether or not we will have a synchronous in-class activity for you, or whether we will just say, do this in place of tutorial or lecture, we'll announce that to you on a weekly basis. All right. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to be able to actually get right away to the programming today. We do kind of have to talk about this ethical behavior or issues that lead to cheating. And why do I need to talk to you about that today, of all days? I think I want to point out. So this reason I'm talking about it today is in 2020. So this was last year in 245. 17 out of 85 students. All right, we had 17 cheating cases out of 85 students. That's 20% of the students. Now, was that the rate of cheating? No, we know from self-reporting of students that rate of cheating is probably closer to 30% or so, or even higher at times. But look, that's a fifth of the class who got themselves, unfortunately, in trouble by being human. It's human nature, okay? Cheating doesn't make you a bad person. Cheating is in my mind, what happens when we have bad time management and we get ourselves stuck in a place, and then as a human, we fall prey to one of our human fallibilities. We're not perfect, and often then cheating is the end result of a whole slew of mistakes being made, and the last mistake being the cheating itself. Okay, so yeah, important lessons were learned by a set of students. At least I hope so, and I really do. You know, like, you get caught cheating, I think the big thing there is it's a chance to go and realize, yes, that's not something I should be doing. I am becoming a professional. I'm going to someday be a professional engineer. Society relies upon me to be ethical. It is part of the transformation from high school student to a professional adult. It's time to say goodbye to the cheating that happened in high school and become the person who's ethical in all of their doings and all of their behavior. And I really see it as a maturity that happens as we go from high school through university to once we leave university. We need to fully accept that we're going to be ethical. We're not going to be doing things that we call in university cheating, and in life we call fraudulent, that end up you going to jail, that end up with you ruining relationships with people and so forth and so on. It's time to say goodbye to all of that. So, I mean, this is really serious. Some of these students got caught cheating so much that their grade in the course was reduced to a 0. I knew, in light of all this, a student who not only cheated in 245 but also cheated in another course, and as a result was suspended. Don't mess your life up in this way, okay? So how do we avoid that? The big thing really is that running out of time leads to cheating. And this has been shown when people have studied university level cheating. This is largely the case. Most of the cheating is not purposefully premeditated. where you get an assignment and you go, how can I cheat on it? That's not the way it works. Now, some people might do that with an exam. That, by the way, premeditated cheating on an exam, which in the case of online education, all cheating on exams is being treated as premeditated. At the university, that results in a suspension. Just don't go cheat. The exam cheating is really bad. Now, assignment cheating is bad, obviously, as well. But most of it happens because people run out of time and they don't want to lose the points. So, how do we deal with that? So you need to budget your time, and there's a multi-step process that I believe I'll come out with assignments on a weekly basis. Usually they'll come out on Wednesday and then be due before that Wednesday. So you'll have 1 week to work on them. When you get an assignment, first thing to do immediately when it's published is to read it. This takes you about 10 minutes. And if you don't understand what the assignment is asking you to do, you need to ask a question. Okay, so you ask questions about anything that you're like, what is he even asking for? Go ask the question. Only takes you 10 minutes. So that's immediately, you always say, oh, and an assignment's out, time to read it. You might not have time to do anything else, but you got to read it. Okay, read an assignment from beginning to end. Then your next step, maybe it's the next day, maybe it's that evening, but I always go, and I learned that you need to draft solutions. And the process of this is also to identify the hard problems. So I read a problem and go, how am I going to solve that? Oh, I know. And I write out a basic sketch of what the answer is going to be. And I know, oh, that's pretty easy. Oh, and then I get to other ones and I go, oh, shoot, that's a hard one. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, and when they're really, if I don't have any clue, this is when you need to start to identify that you're gonna realize maybe you need to get some help with some of these hard ones. How are you gonna get help? Well, turn to the instructors and the TAs. Or start working on them and then go get some help, okay? And so you basically, after you've drafted, so this drafting, this might be, for me, it might be a half hour. Basically, I'm hitting, oh, this is an easy problem. It's going to be like this. Ooh, this is a hard problem. I'm not quite sure what to do. And so I've sketched out my ideas for all the easy ones, and I've identified what the hard ones. Next thing is to really, you basically do the whole thing, or try to do the whole assignment. And then as you're getting stuck, you get help. Boy, you're like, I've worked on this problem for an hour and I don't know, I'm not getting it. Time to get some help, okay? Then eventually you have solutions for everything and you do your final version and you turn in. And as you can see, the idea is to take your assignments always and to break them down into these key steps. Reading it to identify, because if you don't even understand what's being asked, you need to find that out. So do that quickly. It also puts it in your brain and you start thinking about it. And your subconscious actually starts to think about the assignment. Time is to your advantage. Use time to your advantage. Let your brain work on the problem subconsciously while you're busy doing something else. Trust me, it does make a difference. Then you do this first thing, and this really gives you the lay and lets you realize how much work are you going to get stuck with on this assignment, because you're going to have a real good sense of that after you go through this. Again, it's probably a half hour to an hour then. Then you really get into it, really try. But before you devote gigantic amounts of time, you got to realize you're getting stuck. And so go get help. No one wants you to spend a a gigantic amount of time on homework. We want you to get through it in a reasonable amount of time. Homework's reasonably, 5 to 7 hours actually. Okay, this is a programming course. Programming takes time. So you're going to need to budget about 5 to 7 hours total to get homework done. In some cases it might be longer, some cases it might be shorter. It all depends on how much difficulty you're having. But I don't want anyone to tell me, I spent 20 hours on that homework. That's usually a sign that you didn't come and get help early enough. You were stuck on something. Then you write it up and you get the final version in. The whole notion is start it early enough to be able to come and get help so that we can get you through, so that you're able to get it done on time. When you're getting it done on time, you're not going to find yourself up against a wall and feel like you just got to cheat. All right. How am I able to catch so many students? We use plagiarism detection with software. It's called MOS. It's an extremely excellent tool, works very well. Don't think that you can cheat with code and not get caught. You might, but chances are you're going to get caught. All right. On that unpleasant note, yeah, I have one last thing to talk about that, and I want this to be a more positive notion of that. Is I really believe in, truthfully, I want us in 245 to do cooperative learning, but we're not actually going to be doing collaborative learning. And you're like, what the heck is he talking about? What's the difference between cooperative and collaborative? So in cooperative, you can help each other understand material. Absolutely. Like, I don't understand this idea of, left outer join. Could we work through an example and try to learn it together? Absolutely. Do that sort of thing. That's not collaboration. You're cooperating with each other. Okay? You're cooperatively working together to solve problems of learning. You're not collaborating to answer a question on the homework. Okay? But you can, by the way, you can help someone to debug their code. I don't care if you end up looking at someone's code to help them figure out what they're doing wrong. You can't give them the answer. You can't give them your code. They can't copy your code. But you guys can, I want you to cooperate and help each other. Absolutely. Okay? But the big thing here is you cannot copy. To copy is collaborative. MSCI 342, the course after 245, the entire course is basically collaborative work. We're all working together on building one solution. Okay, this team is working together. Absolutely, like we're both solving the problem together. That's collaboration. You're not allowed to collaborate in 245. You are allowed to have cooperative learning though. You are allowed to help each other understand the material. You can even help them like debugging their code and stuff, understanding what seems to be going wrong, but you cannot copy. You can't give them your solution. If they look at, so let's say someone looks into debugs and sees something, they are not allowed to actually copy what they see. They still have to do it on their own. Okay? in general, be really careful about this, because once you see it, you might not be able to unsee it, and you might not be able to think about another way to solve the problem. So usually this works very well when we have someone who's strong, who's already solved the problem, helps someone debug their code, but they're careful not to just give them their answer. If you just give them their answer, they're going to end up copying. You guys are going to be collaborating. You're going to be found guilty of cheating. So you got to be careful about what you're doing here, okay? So you can talk with each other. You can help each other. But you can't exchange copies, and you can't copy, and you need to be careful about seeing other people's work, because you might then mistakenly copy it. But it's pretty rare for you to mistakenly copy things. If you do not have a copy of it, it will be actually really hard for you to write code that's the same as the other person. Okay? Now with this in mind, you're like, wait a minute, this sounds really dangerous. I'm going to get accused of cheating. Again, if you don't exchange copies, it's really unlikely that's going to happen. If you don't truly collaborate, so like when you sit down as a group and you solve the problems together, that's collaboration, and that's not allowed. Okay? You can talk about a problem. You can talk about the ideas. You can talk about all the material. You can cooperate. You cannot collaborate. The big thing that you need to do, and you've seen this in 240 and 121, is you absolutely have to acknowledge all sources as you work on homework, okay? So you've got to acknowledge the web pages that you might have seen material on and used. I don't need you to acknowledge the textbooks, okay? Everything relies back on the textbook, so you don't need to acknowledge the textbooks. But resources outside of the world of textbooks, absolutely. You gotta explain where you got that help from. You're going to have to acknowledge all the classmates that you cooperated with, okay? So you helped them or they helped you. You have to tell us this. All right. And we're also going to want you to talk about the help that you got from the instructional staff. So from the TAs and the instructor, that's me. This is to remind us, because we might accidentally give you a solution or to help you in a way that's very similar that we help someone else, and then we find that there's similarities between your two pieces of work. We don't want to accuse you of cheating when it's just because that you got help from us. So we need to know that you got help from us and how you got help from us. Now, this is basically the big thing. The reason for this is I want to instill in you that what we're really aiming to do here is to establish this ethical behavior. Okay? So it's ethically, you're responsible to acknowledge each person's contribution to your work. And this is true for your whole professional life. So if you do anything and someone else gives you an idea, someone else helps you, you go visit a web page, whoever it is that's responsible for a portion of the work that you've done, responsible for a portion of the ideas in your work, in your paper that you're writing, in your report, your presentation, your software. The ethical thing is to acknowledge their contribution. Okay? You need to acknowledge these people. You'll see it in all the scientific papers. We acknowledge we cite everything. We quote other people's work. It's what professionals do. We don't just take ideas and then don't give people credit. When we get help, when we get ideas, we give people credit for that. And here's the big thing to keep in mind with regard to academic mishonesty, policy 71 at University of Waterloo. When you do this acknowledgement, and when you're open about how you cooperated with someone, not collaborated, cooperated, and helped each other, and where you got ideas from or help, when we find similarity between assignments then, and we go and we say, oh, they said that they cooperated with each other, usually the most that's going to happen is to say, it looks like you might have done a little bit more than cooperated. It looks like you might have stepped into the world of collaboration. Don't do that again. Okay? Like, let's help to teach you about how to help each other without going into the world of collaboration and collaboratively solving the homework. Certainly you could, you copy someone else's work and you say, oh, I cooperated with them. If you're blatantly like cheating, that's not going to solve the problem to acknowledge. But it might help a bit, okay, when it comes to the actual case. But in general, the small stuff doesn't turn into big stuff if you acknowledge it. Because I want this to be going on. I want you to be helping each other. I just don't want you to be giving each other answers, okay? But no matter what, the ethical thing is we always, for the rest of your life, you give credit to the people who help you. You give credit to people whose ideas you use in your solutions. All right.